gonna swim, bike, and run in the corner sun. We're gonna swim, bike, and run in the corner sun. 2021.
Thank you, Poncho Man. My name is Bob Babbitt. We are Breakfast with Bob, not quite Kona edition. That is our beautiful Huggos backdrop. We are brought to you by Hoka One One Credo Tri Amp Human, Challenge North America, Velo Fix, Four Seasons Hualalai, Normatec, Form Goggles, UCAN Canyon Bikes, and of course our Challenged Athletes Foundation. Our next guest, the CEO of Challenge North America, Mr. Bill Christy, who's coming off of, I don't know, sort of just a regular everyday weekend for him. How you doing, Mr. Christy?
I'm well. Hey, it was great having you guys down. Always a pleasure. I was stunned at where you guys were set up in the 500 Club and the view you guys had down, not only to the big grass in the back grandstands, but us moving T1 up to, or T2, excuse me, up to the finish line, by the finish line. It was beautiful. That was a lot of red.
It was spectacular, and we were chatting beforehand that when you put on a race with the greatest pro field ever assembled, with $1.15 million on the line, even if people didn't know the name Challenge before the weekend started, they know the name now. You had pieces in the New York Times, you had international media that was talking about the event. As a guy who's been involved with NASCAR forever, how important was it to make that statement that we are going big and we ain't going home?
Yeah, go big or go home. I mean, you said it when you were here. Look, there was only one way to do this, and we knew, and we've talked about it in the past, if we didn't do what we did in the quality that we did it, then we were never going to know if triathlon could be a primetime event where people were entertained. And so, the folks at NASCAR Productions, God love them. I think I had about 30 hours a weekend with them between graphics, and probably one of my favorite places that they began was they brought up graphics from Kona and that race last year, graphics from Roth. And, then we started developing graphics for this year. And our goal was to treat it like a NASCAR race. And we started from the beginning. And there were things that we did that I thought were absolutely critically important. I wanted all the athletes to be recognized. So you saw the top 10 that we were following, but you also saw roll throughs of all the other athletes and what their splits were. So I thought that was important to add to the conversation. So if we did it right, and I know you watched the NBCSN first production last night, as well as you were there for the live stream. Hopefully it was entertaining. I've gotten texts from all over the world saying they thought it was entertaining, where my favorite comment was, my wife hates triathlon. She'll never go to another race with me ever again. And she did not get off the couch. So I think we did it right. What do you think?
I think you absolutely did it right. What I always enjoy is, you can do a standalone pro race, but at the end of the day, how sustainable is that? The fact that you had, 2,500, 3,000 age groupers. You had a pro-am on Friday, and the pros were totally involved, totally connected. Lionel Sanders was out there with his team swimming and cheering him on. Then you had half distance race, age group race on Saturday, sprint distance on Sunday, 5K, 10K. It was, when Geff and I are doing the show and I'm looking behind me at Challenge at the Daytona Speedway, all I think of is Tri-Festival. I see a whole week of bike races and swim clinics and clubs, and I'm sure that's your vision. These racetracks can be the home of endurance all over the country.
Yeah, no question. I mean, one of the things we would have liked to have done this year, and it came to us late, was we should have put the 5K, 10K race through the Christmas light display on the outside of the track. It was a gorgeous display. And one of the pros said, how can we not do the 5K, 10K for everybody through the Christmas lights? And I sat there and I said, I hadn't thought of that. That's a great idea. Let's do that. So adding a marathon to the equation is another big part of what we're going to do.
No question.
So there are so many things, and you're right. We've got to extend the festival weekend. My team, Jillian Wilkins, and her entire group put on 11 events technically on Saturday, and not including the pro-am. And I think that wore her out, but that's what she does. She's amazing. You know, her entire team. I sat at those 4:30 a.m. briefings, and I went to all the evening briefings, and they were just rock solid. But to your point, there's no limits. And if we really want this to be a festival weekend, we should probably have a big name band entertainment there.
Absolutely. Yep.
So we've talked about that in the past, but the number of folks that were there, the number of athletes who were there, as you know, we sold out. We capped the numbers. Transition, as you saw, was about, I'm going to say 75% of the first lot, which was, we did that on purpose to make sure that we had enough safety and distancing. But yeah, this is going to do nothing but get bigger as we learn what people want more in a festival. The RV camping, we were sold out, which is great. So we're gonna have to open up another RV lot. So if we do it right, yeah, we'll make this into a bigger festival, so that everybody's got something to enjoy through the week. But
so you've been an age group triathlete yourself. When did it hit you that, okay, I'm an age group triathlete, I love this sport, but it's just not getting the buzz it deserves? And let's be honest, the sport has declined since, 2015 on down. Our numbers at events have gone down, and a lot of events have gone away.
yes.
What was it about this sport that you saw that you felt you could elevate and take to another level?
Well, the basic stuff was that which I was living it. So my wife wasn't going to go to another race. You knew that. So I knew two things. One, you should be able to get a hot shower. You should be able to get a good meal. You should be able to stay at a good hotel, and they should be close to the venue. The other part of that is there's got to be more from an entertainment standpoint. And the last part of that is I never got to see the pros race. So those were the three big things. And then I spent some time getting to know some of the core pros that came to our first race and started leaning on them. And when we broke that race out, I think that was a real big milestone. And that was a function of me going to a race, and we've laughed about it before. They were in their condominiums having dinner, and I was still out on the course. But utilizing the assets in the track-centric model makes total sense. So then you step forward and say, how do we make this real entertainment for people to see? I know the bike manufacturers were all sold out this year. Shoe manufacturers had a tough time getting inventory. People had to get out because of the health issues that were going on around the country. And if this is a chance to advance what I would call a sustainable lifestyle, then maybe we can, through the festival concept, bring people together, increase the sport, and we have to show entertainment and its value. And so they have to have something to do. They have to be able to participate, and they have to walk away having a great experience. The food's got to be there. Entertainment, something for everybody to do. A good festival, a good music festival would be nice. Little things like we should have had a marathon. We should have raced through the lights. So we're learning. It's getting bigger. It's getting better. And yeah, we're going to continue to push.
So March 13th, you get to do it all again at
Miami.
Challenge Miami, right? At the Homestead Miami Speedway.
Yeah.
Talk a little about that, because I think you're talking about racing the pros under the lights.
We will go back to there was so much fanfare about the pros racing under the lights. We did the day race this year because we needed to be able to live stream to Europe and across the world. Right. And tough to do that at night.
Yes.
There's a big conversation internally with us about, do we do that schedule again? Do we put them under the lights? Do we do the pro-am under the lights again? So our intention is, again, this, we love this distance. We call it the Daytona distance. We think it's a great equalizer. The folks that are coming in from ITU, they've got a good swim, but then they've got to hammer a good distance, 80K on the bike. And we saw it this weekend where the cramping caught up to a lot of them, Alistair Brownlee and on and so forth. So I think the distance works for the multiple disciplines of long distance, long course folks, and the short course, folks.
Mhm.
I'm still tired by having a tough time remembering my name still. Uh, but I think that distance works. So yeah, Miami Speedway is really special. Miami has grown so big so quickly that Homestead used to be way on the outside of town. Now they've got a super highway out there. It's about 35 minutes from the airport. It's now South Miami. It's no longer Homestead. And so that component of it, the great hotels that are close by, good restaurants that are close by, the uniqueness to that course, we're gonna look at, the chicanes that are there, the road course that's there. It's a pretty heavy labyrinth. The lake's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's spring fed. There's a beach. They actually put in like a Miami beach. There's lifeguard chairs. There's palm trees. We're going to continue the festival. And I don't know that we'll get the marathon in this late now that we've chosen to add marathon components to the race. But I promise you we'll have one in Daytona, if not sooner.
What I loved was the little touches, the fireworks before the start of every race. Right? If you're doing the sprint race on Sunday morning, the pro race is happening later. Wait a second, there's fireworks for us, fireworks before the half the day before, obviously before the pro race. Those little touches, and then even the award ceremony for the pros, having the sparklers there, the fireworks for that. Just what's cool is you made use of what was already there in terms of the victory lane. You've got all those assets there. You've got the lights. Making use of that was awesome, and I think everybody really appreciated it. And the other thing that I thought was the coolest, the helmet awards. Nobody has ever seen that before, and everybody who was walking away with their helmet award was like, "Oh my God, this is the coolest award I've ever gotten."
I heard that a bunch of times. Again, Jillian, when we gave out the pro, and as you know, the champion helmet is an actual NASCAR helmet, and it's signed by the top four, and the champion itself, and then the three drivers right behind them every year. And that is the actual award that we give to the champions. And Jillian fell in love with these smaller versions of that helmet, and they were cool. They really were. And she shipped in a bunch of them, and she said, "This needs to be our award." And I heard nothing but great things about them. We handed out a bunch of them. People were, between that and the golden tickets, I think it was exciting. But yeah, I heard the same thing, and it was the coolest award we'd ever received. So if we can continue to do those little things, the fireworks, my favorite story there is that Chip Lyle, and Chip is now, I do have his new title. Chip's now is the president, regional president, Southeastern region for all NASCAR tracks. Sorry, Chip, took me a couple shows to get that right. I got it right. Chip is out on the dock when the fireworks are going off. And he said, "My team didn't know about the fireworks." I said, "Chip, your team bought me the fireworks. How could you say that?" So it was kind of fun, but I think the fireworks surprised a lot of people. It's a big part of NASCAR. The national anthem, as you know, is a big part of the celebration at NASCAR. And we have to continue to incorporate those components. And when you look at NFL and NHL and MLB and basketball, and their numbers are all crushed down. And NASCAR is the only sport that's up. So the venue works, the open air venue works, the safety protocols we put in place. Everybody commented about how they felt about that. I'd be interested in what you heard.
Oh, it was great. We got temperature checked every day. We had our COVID test done when we first got there. I thought, everybody was doing a great job with masking, and from racing, my racing perspective, you had I was like, okay, I'm leaving transition now to go to the start of the swim. I'm not going to wear a mask during the swim, but you guys handed out masks for people to go to the start and throw them away. I mean, every little aspect of it was thought out, which was great. The other thing that really impressed me was, and I want to get your feedback on this. I mean, you've talked about this triathlon thing, and some of the NASCAR guys have seen it. Obviously, the TV guys were involved this year shooting it. What were their thoughts on capturing a sport? They're normally capturing something going 200 miles an hour. Now they're capturing something going 30 miles an hour.
Well, so let's talk about the average speed of 30.5 miles an hour.
Yeah.
For that entire pro field. I mean, Starkey, what was Starkey last year? Starkey and Cam, I think, were 31 and change. Yeah. 31. and they had a pretty good tailwind that year, and taking nothing away from those two exceptional cyclists. You know, we looked at that whole thing, and the NASCAR production guys they had more fun than I did.
Yeah.
We were sitting in the booth, and the camera shots and the angles, and it's pretty fast and furious inside that production booth. Rick Allen, who, you know, I can't speak enough of the combination with him and Belinda. And Rowdy Gaines in the booth, Kevin on the ground, Alicia on the ground. Alicia had a ball. She did a spectacular job. Kevin is Kevin. You'd never expect anything less. But the fun that Rick had in this sport, and Rick was a decathlete. So a lot of people don't know that at Nebraska, he was a pretty big deal, missed his window for the Olympics and just barely missed the Olympics the year before, or the cycle before, I should say. And having him in the booth, having done his homework, watching them get excited about Rick. I remember Rick said at one point, you know, that guy's running down the red carpet. He doesn't have shoes on. And Belinda said, no, his shoes are clipped in his bike. And Rick said, so he's going to jump on the bike. She said, yep, he's going to jump on the bike. He'll pedal on his shoes for a bit, and then he'll slide into his shoes. And then the women and the drafting in the water with the women, where they were on each other's toes, and there were a couple of times, and the men where they were on each other's hips. And Belinda was talking about the tugboat effect.
Yeah.
You know, just it was really special. But the actual production guys were in the booth saying, and they were looking back, right? So, you know, here's Heather coming out of the water late, and they've got her coming out of the water, and then to watch her catch up, you know, Tim O'Donnell, as well as Lionel, way back, coming all the way up. It was great. We're going to do some things better. We need to tell some more backstory on some of those folks in the live feed. We need to spend more time on a lot of the action. We spent time on the action on 1 to 10, but there were some things happening 10 to 20 that was pretty spectacular. So we need to spend more time there. But they had a ball. They're all fired up. They can't wait to Miami. You know, they're like, hey, we can do this better. We can do this better. But I think the graphics told the story, and that was a big part of it. I think people understood what was going on, what the split times were. My favorite part was the athletes striking a pose when they'd show, you know, they'd show Annie Haug, and they'd pop up the picture of Annie Haug, and she was walking down the runway, and she crossed her leg or crossed her arms, and Holly came out, and Holly was doing the finger point, and they had a great time. It was new for them. It was exciting for them. It's not the same thing they do every, you know, Saturday, Sunday. And I think they had more fun than I did.
The other thing that you and PTO are taking the pros to another level, and being there Monday morning for the NASCAR training, the media training, was spectacular. I've been in the sport for 40 years. I've never seen that before, ever. And we basically, someone becomes a great pro athlete, and we just assume they understand how to deal with media and do interviews, etc. The assumption at NASCAR is that all of us are starting knowing nothing, and we better make sure they understand, take care of their own sponsors, the event sponsors, have a personality. How important was that to you to make that happen?
That was the thing that I started off with at the first pro dinner in 2018. Chip Wild said, let us teach you how to do this. And that was the birth of the Pro-Am to engage the athletes. That was the birth of the autograph signing sessions that was live in 2019. This year, obviously, we were a little hampered, but we wanted to get the message across. And Sam Roof said, hey, we'd like to continue some media training. And I said, okay, I'll call Eric Nyquist. And Eric Nyquist, who's the executive VP of communications for NASCAR, came out, and he and Chip Weil focused on something. And Eric's message, which I thought was the strongest part of the message, is you think you're a triathlete. You're not, right? You think your job is to be a triathlete. It's not. Your job is to engage your fans, your sponsors, communicate with them, make sure you're connected with them at all times. There were some good questions that came out of that. But at the end of the day, Eric said, I want to pick 4 people as examples to be able to show the rest of the field how successful we can make this. And 2 of them have been picked. I had lunch with one of them that afternoon, right after, and it was Sam Long. I'll tell you who that was. And I gave Sam a little bit of grief. And Sam, if you're watching, know that this is the beginning of your training that Eric's going to put on you. But Sam had the top to his kit unzipped, and you couldn't see his sponsors.
Exactly.
But the thing that I loved about what Sam did, and I don't know if you saw it, but his splits went from 5:33 to 5:15s in front of the crowd.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
It probably cost him a few places down the line. He burned a few matches. Yeah.
I don't know. His fist pumps were great. He was excited. They were energized. He was energized. So the media training is one more step in us helping the athletes become world-class athletes where they're being compensated for their efforts, not just as professional triathletes, but as engaging athletes to the sponsors, to the fans. And that's one of the beauties of breaking that race out. So you can do that. So yeah, we're excited about that. Thank you. That was I'll pass that along.
One of the things when I was interviewing Sam from PTO, one of the questions a lot of us have had, we look at it and go, okay, it's great that you're putting out $1.15 million for this. It's great that you're supplementing other events with all this cash. It's great that you put 2.5 million into these athletes who couldn't race this year. What is the end game in terms of, ROI on this? And obviously for you in NASCAR, that's a legitimate question as well. Where do you guys make dollars at the end of the day on this?
We think the business model is broken. We think that the traditional model of sponsor, registration sales, and now, right, and now the potential of TV, which that's going to be a 3-year investment on our part. We think the traditional model of registration sponsors is dead. And we learned that lesson at NASCAR probably about 5-6 years ago. And if you remember, it used to be the Sprint Cup Series. Yes. It's now the NASCAR Cup Series, and they have multiple premier sponsors. So that's one of the things that we did. We've got to figure out a way to get the athletes to engage the fan base, their coaches, get their coaches to engage, get their sponsors to engage the age group athletes, and then share the pie. And that's my intention. I'm going to be rolling out a pretty specific plan after I get some continued feedback from the pros as to what I believe our next step can be. So step one is fix the business model. I think that the PTO has done a great job at a part of that business model, which is, their focus is, can we get on TV? It was first a pay-per-view model. Then when we got NBC on board, and NBC gave us Peacock as well as NBCSN. NBCSN again today at 1:30, and then January 2nd at 5 p.m.
On regular NBC.
On regular NBC, on the big channel, not including the 150 countries around the world that all have, major networks like Brazil and, Fox has got, the Asian connection. So that product's going to be all over the world. And we know that's going to be an investment for 3 years. We know that it's going to have to get some grassroots to move. But when we looked at, and I read you these media numbers before we got on the call, and I naively said, Bob, what does that mean? And I asked somebody yesterday, and they said that means that people who are not triathletes watch the show.
Yes.
So we're waiting on the Nielsen data as we speak. And that will tell us a bunch. But was the show entertaining? And I would ask you, as you get social media and follow-ups to this interview, what are you hearing? Was it entertaining?
I heard that most people felt that the live stream was probably the best live stream we've seen in terms of just the graphics that you had. And again, the advantage you are in a controlled environment. You don't have people riding out in the middle of nowhere where you're trying to get cell service and all the rest of it, or GPS. You brought in what NASCAR does, and you had the arrows showing Lionel Sanders, 18th place, 30.2 miles an hour. And you saw the changing in positions and the arrows. It was so professionally done, and the pieces during the week, right, where they did, and this was professionally done as well, is the athletes came to the Daytona building, and then you had photos, social media. They said went to photos, social media, came to do breakfast with Bob, and then they were off. So, and the just the production from the PTO team, they did phenomenal.
Their graphics were exceptional. I was just flat out jealous of what happened the 2 weeks before.
Yeah,
I was jealous. We were really focused on the production quality of the race itself, and I tried to explain that yesterday. And we didn't set that race up as a live stream. We set that race up as, if we had a time slot on TV, that's where it would have been.
Yes.
So other folks take a live stream, they chop it up, and then they commentate over the top of it, where we treated it like it was a live production for TV at that moment. It was an 8-hour race, as opposed to a 3-hour NASCAR race. Yeah. And we wanted the women to go first. We wanted everybody to see the women finish. That was important to me. My mother, God love her soul, she'd probably be happy with me over that. But we wanted to give them their due, and it was an exciting race. Annie Hogg, after that penalty, she was just mad watching her run. She was flying like the wind. And then, watching the penalty on the men's side, had at least then, and I'm trying to think, but it was a 2-minute penalty. Yeah, and had he kept his pace, Victor, right, and he kept his pace, he would have been 10 seconds off of Eden.
A race,
so it would have been a foot race.
It's actually interesting because it's part of. Think about it. We're in the entertainment, and part of the equation is your officials are part of that, because they impact what's going on. And I almost feel like officials need to be part of the whole media training and everything else. Because when you're 20 meters in terms of a draft, if somebody slides into 17 or 18 meters, they're still not a draft, right? So is there more communication going on rather than being, you're within 20 meters, you're getting 2 minutes, and that takes the air out of your race?
We actually had one of the officials in the production booth with us. So when that stuff was going on, we knew what it was and when it was. Which we thought that was important. We learned more from that. They're on a different radio network than we were. That won't happen in Miami. We will share a network where I will carry a radio in the production booth. Keith Alessandro, the producer, will have a radio, and we won't have to turn to the USAT official and wait for a call back on what the penalty was. Both those penalties, when they were in the penalty box, got a little hot and bothered, as you saw that. Yep. And so, are we going to put a microphone in that? That was the big question of the production booth. Absolutely. Should we put a microphone on it? Absolutely. So next time, it's going to get hot, it's going to get furious, and we're putting a mic in there. Some of the other highlights were watching the women go 3 wide. There was a point where, and that's where Annie Hogg was penalized. She went 4 wide on the tarmac. So it was fun. It was exciting. But yeah, you're right. We're putting a microphone in there. It's going to capture it all. We're going to hang a microphone right in the tent.
I would also put a camera similar to what the police wear to put on your officials.
Body cams.
Yes. So
that's a great idea.
What they're seeing when you're, it's like, okay, wait a second. Let's take a look at that. Was that a good call or not? Let people at home, what do you think? It's similar to what they do with NFL. They make calls. So I just think that they shouldn't be doing that in a vacuum. You need to know who made the call, when they made it, where they made it, why they made it. Because they changed the game, right? They changed what could have been a sprint race for the men's, for sure.
Yeah, that could have been a change in $100,000 versus $75,000 for sure.
Exactly. So Watkins Glen, Laguna Seca. I know
you keep saying Laguna Seca. You keep saying Laguna. I keep saying the one a little bit north of there, and you keep saying Laguna Seca.
Which one are you talking?
Laguna. No, which one are you talking? Why do you want Laguna Seca?
Well, you know what? We had a duathlon on Laguna Seca with Aaron Baker, Lance Armstrong, Scott Tinley back in the day. Before it became the Cactus, before it became Sea Otter, it was a Challenge of the Champions. Believe it or not, it was called Challenge of the Champions back then. It was on the cover of our magazine, Competitor. And it was a great venue. Now, I don't know how far a body of water is from there, but, so is the goal to be on multiple racetracks moving forward?
Absolutely. We'll be at 12 in 5 years. I will probably accelerate that depending on the team members that we're talking about bringing on. We're excited about those folks, that years of experience. So the track-centric model works very well. Each race will have its own thing. Example, I met with all the New York tri clubs. So Chelsea was there, Brooklyn was there, Hackensack was there, all the big five. And I said, what do you guys want in a race at Watkins Glen? And they said, we want it to be the club championship. Perfect. And I said, okay. And I said, well, if that's going to be the case, we're going to get you guys a big trophy like the NASCAR trophy and one to take home. And winner takes all. Winner gets naming rights to the trophy. So if it's the Chelsea club, it's now the Chelsea Cup. So we're gonna cut them loose on that. That'll be fun. And as we move track to track, we'll give each of them their own personality. But it's not hard. I tell people all the time, because I get this question routinely, and that is, go to the NASCAR Cup Series and look for road courses. And once you've looked for road courses, look for bodies of water. Yes. This is not a tough equation, and it keeps me out of trouble with Jillian.
So what you'll have Miami and Daytona for sure in 2021. What will there be a third one in 2021?
I know that we'll add a marathon in 2021. New York is really a question mark in 2021. So we'll see how that goes. We've got the ability to pull the trigger pretty quickly. But I think we're really going to set up for adding a couple supplemental events, maybe a distance swim, those kind of things in places that we know we can get those done. But 2022 is going to be a big focus for us. And we really want to continue to focus on the quality of the product. As you know, you had a hard card, and I'm sure you guys still have your hard cards.
Oh, yeah.
So the security component is going to be important to us. We had the Wahoo training facility, and that was in the 500 clubs. So the pros, as they wanted to spin up and warm up, they had them all week. If they weren't on the track, they had the ability to go in there and lock onto their Wahoos and the treadmills that were there. But it was such a beautiful week all week that not many people used it much.
People wanted to ride the track. You kidding? That was the one constant when I'd ask every guest, what'd you think of riding the track? It was like, oh my God, I had no idea. Because you hear, oh, it's gonna be flat. And then they get up there and they see the 31-degree bank and they're like, oh my God. And seeing the NASCAR truck with looked like a Westcam that would be hanging on a helicopter on the back of that truck up high, shooting the cyclist on the tarmac there. That was a great angle. That brought a new angle to the sport.
I just can't continue to tell you what those folks went through and the planning and the time we spent on the phones for the last 6 months, working through the production of that with the 20-meter draft rule and where the trucks were going to be and keeping them on the banks and making sure there wasn't going to be anybody close by and what the camera requirements were going to be and the low flying airplane over the top. To give us shots from that angle. They thought of everything, and they're brutal. They've already chewed themselves up, spit themselves out, and said, here's how we're going to get better for Miami. The graphics, we like the graphics a bunch. We're probably going to add a little bit there. I love the fact that they had the splits and the drop-down boxes. If you watched Lionel, you'd be like, okay, that lap, Lionel was this much faster than everybody else, and then he was this much faster than everybody else. We love those graphics, so we're going to add there. So we're excited about what they did. We're excited about where they're going to go and what they're going to do next. But yeah, the whole banking thing, people have no idea the magnitude and the size of those tracks. People are like, oh, it's got to be, that's a lot of people to have on that. Well, no, it's pretty much, at some points, it's 8 superhighway widths wide. At its skinniest point, not including the banking, it's 2 superhighway widths wide. And I've done races where we've raced on the shoulder of the road and cars are going by, and that's more the norm than it is the exception. So yeah, I can't say enough about the angles and the shots they were getting. I love the transition on T2 between Paula and Lisa. Yeah, and I think you saw Lisa at that point struggling a little bit. Watching them come in, flying the bike in off of that after there was a lead change where Lisa took Paula, and that happened twice, right? Lisa took Paula, Paula took Lisa, Lisa took Paula. But watching them flying the bike coming into T2, watching the angles there was fun. But hands down, the thing we missed that we won't miss again is the feisty, hot engagement with the USAT officials in the penalty tent. Hands down, won't miss that one again.
That was really, really fun. I love the fact that all the people who raced were there, looking at a big screen, and then we're there at that finish area, socially distant with masks on, watching and cheering for the folks as they came in. That was awesome.
It was special. We had to keep people away from the finish line from a fan standpoint, but the fans really wanted to be close to the pros during the run and during the bike. And so we had that huge area that went from probably halfway in the middle of the track all the way down darn near to turn one. That was that huge space that was gated. And people were, and we said this early on, you're going to have to be a grown-up. And we turned the Jumbotron so they could see the finish line, see the finish chute. They could actually look down the finish chute. People were socially distant. They were cognizant. They were aware. We limited the number of people there. We put all the other people up on top of the blue garage in the viewing area up there. And those were essential personnel only. That was family members. Those were age group racers. So it turned out well.
So for our folks who, they're like, they think there was some science, some big time science that went into the banking and when they built the Daytona track. Tell the story on how you ended up at 31 degrees.
Laura, God bless it. I think she tells it best. And she asked the question. But you are convinced there was a geometric equation that went into speed, banking, angle,
G-force,
all that stuff, right? No, it was the steepest the bulldozer could plow the dirt without flipping over. So you got to remember that track was built, in the 50s. So NASCAR was founded in 48. I think the track was started in 58 and finished in 59. So that was a long time ago.
Yeah. In that hole that they built they had to get the dirt from, is that where we swim?
That's Lake Lloyd. So Lake Lloyd's, as you know, is clean, beautiful. The bass fishing there is just unbelievable, but you will get nose to nose with a carp. And that's a big fish. But yeah, they dug that at 64 feet at its deepest point. Obviously they manage it aggressively for things that are not swimmers or fish. And boy, it's a big, people don't have a concept of the magnitude. And I think the NBC folks did a great job with the low orbiting plane to show what it looked like. T1 was, it was awful red in T1. There's a lot of red in there, and it looked great from the air. And then the bike exits, the run exits, T1, T2, the finish line, a lot of red there. You had the best angle, by the way, looking down on it.
Yeah, we had Hey, Billy, congratulations on everything you guys accomplished this weekend. When we first started chatting a couple of years ago, and you had a vision, and you brought that vision to life and invested in these pros and invested in the sport. And I'm, for one, really appreciative of what you're doing, because we need this. The sport needs it. New ideas, new concepts, new blood. It's going to take the sport to another level.
Hopefully people watch it on TV and they'll be entertained, and people are not triathletes. They might be runners, or they might be cyclists, or they might be tennis players or golfers. They're looking to shake it up and try something new. Hopefully we'll drag them out to some part of the event. But look, it was my dream, but there are some spectacular people who implemented that dream. We'll continue. You're going to be a part of the postmortem, which really sounds bad now that I say that.
Yeah, just like post-production chat.
It really is. Okay, let's switch that. Let's switch the vernacular on that to post-production chat. You're going to be a part of that. Mac's going to be a part of it. The NBC group is going to be a part of it, and we're going to figure out a way to make it better, make it bigger. So we're going to onward and upward.
Bill Christy has been our guest again. Breakfast with Bob, not quite Kona edition. Check out the NBC show on January 2nd. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be spectacular. Thank you, Billy.
Thank you. You guys have a great day and a happy holiday.
Thank you, brother. Take care of yourself.